Is Forex fraud? No, trading is a very crazy environment. If you think you know much about yourself, start trading.
Everything you have, lifestyle, your cars, is it from Forex?
I was buying when the market was literally like going down. The price kept going down. I couldn't sleep the whole night. People that come online to perhaps make any form of allegations, accusations, are not necessarily tainting the image of Forex. They're tainting my personal image. Perhaps I look too young to have accumulated all that I did and then accustomed that success to Forex.
Most people in their head, okay, Forex, I'm putting my $100 in, I'll get 200 tomorrow.
For anybody that really thinks around that logic with trading, tell you the truth, they're not welcome in our world. For me, money is a tool that just buys time.
Are you a millionaire? Is there a reason why you put your lifestyle out there?
That's what the social platform was made for. Did we say we should come and post our sufferings and hunger and begging and no?
Hi Kojo, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
You're a very, very, very difficult man to find. I've been looking for you since like December.
And sometimes I am.
Why have you left Ghana, please?
Why have I left Ghana?
Yes, you've left the country for us.
Should I follow the cliche responses?
No, I want the honest answer.
The cliche response for greener pastures.
But honest answer, that's the honest answer.
Why I've left Ghana?
Yeah, because you're barely in Ghana.
I don't necessarily say I've left Ghana, but I just think that what I would say is I just created a second home.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Anyways,
if it makes sense.
It does actually.
Yeah.
It does. You're welcome to Unscripted. So the purpose of this show, let me just give you a quick intro. What we are trying to do is bring people who are doing amazing things, both in Ghana and outside. We are looking at traveling very soon. So if you want to sponsor us, right, to come and share their stories, because there are people with a lot of stories, but then people don't see what goes behind the scenes, right? And when I was watching one of your videos, you said something that was very interesting, that over here in Ghana, when people post their wins and things, the first response from our citizens is like, scam, fraud, this. They don't wait to listen to where this person is coming from, right? But when we go to the Western culture, the Western world, you have these people sharing their stories, telling how things, you see somebody like Mr. Beast, right? You see when he started, like the internet has records of that. So I want to create a platform where we can keep track of these things, right? So today we're going to talk about Kojo Forex. Who is Kojo Forex? And I don't want the usual, he's a Forex trader and a business. Like, I want to know your background story, where you started from till today. The floor is yours.
Okay. That's a long one, though.
I'm ready to hear it.
Okay. How long can your tape record for?
3 hours, we are going.
Okay. Kojo Forex, my original name is, or my birth name is Bright Kojo Onipayede. So you can already assume where the Kojo Forex comes from, my middle name. And I come from a very middle-class family. We're originally a family of 5, right? Mm-hmm. Myself, my dad, my mom, and then 2 elder sisters. I'll add on that I currently do have like step siblings, but they're just like young ones from different mother. My dad is a police officer, something I've said a few times online, and my mom is a trader, and then she's sometimes a businesswoman, but basically doing menial trades. Yeah. So growing up, because of my dad's arm of operations, which is like in the police service, the CID department, we did travel around Ghana a lot. We lived in the Volta region. We lived in, Central region, and even so many parts around Accra here. So looking at that from a childhood background, I did attend a lot of primary schools, moving from one school to the other. So it made me popular, at a very young age, because like, I'm in this school, the next time. Yes. So before we go to SHS, right, some school that I left even when I was like in class 1, class 2, and I never got back to that school. I met exactly my colleagues in SHS. You know how that story goes. And I met some of them in uni again, and we reunited, and that was like my real background. So, but from a very humble home. But I particularly say because I was like the third born of my father and then the first son, I kind of had some special treatment at home. Always like favorited, if I put it that way. And also because perhaps I was also blessed academically. So anytime I bring my report home, it's like I'm doing well more than perhaps my other siblings. So my dad was always like, in fact, both parents' favorite child, sort of, So even though there was like some level of suffering in the house, it didn't really like transcend to me absolutely, because the bare minimum that I needed, it was provided for me. I went on. So I did attend a lot of like primary schools. The one that I finally complete was called is called Saint Joseph Junior High School in La Paz, right? So I was really around that La Paz grassroots neighborhood. Then I went on to Agri Memorial. In Agri Memorial, I read general arts, and then eventually was posted to the business class. So I eventually completed as a business student.
You moved from general arts to business.
Yeah, you know those times when we were the batch that started the computer placement system. So the computer will literally choose your school for you, plus your course for you. But where you have like that preference to change when you get to like the next level. So yeah, I started my first year as a general student, but I moved on to business eventually. So I completed with like business. And in my school, I remember that business, we used to have like 2 classes, one that did elective maths and one that did cost accounting, but I did the elective maths one, yeah. And then so from Agri Memorial, then I headed on to University of Ghana, specifically the business school, and then I did accounting, right? That's my major. It's like BSc administration. So university, I did BSc administration, accounting. That was like my major option. And then so from there, I think that was just when my trading endeavors began, right? So after that national service, I was blessed to also be posted to National Petroleum Authority. I served there for 1 year. I had contract for 1 year. And then during those times, there was like a government policy where government institutions were not employing new employees, if I put it that way. Especially for NPA too, they also had their own policy of not retaining. But it favored me anyway, like in the sense that they really wanted to retain me, but I had my own goals from there. And then from there, I pursued a little bit of ambition in the army. You were in. Yeah, I worked briefly, really not up to like my expectation because I was specifically looking for the Air Force arm, but what was available then was the army itself, the military, the Air Force, Army, Navy. And so like it was not an option to pursue again. That was just when I turned all ears deaf and then focused solely on like Forex trading. Yeah.
I think last year you were making some tweets about your father, the home you come from, and all. And when you were talking, you mentioned middle class, which means you are from a home that is not so poor and not so rich. You're in the middle.
Absolutely.
But then when you made the tweet, people came talking about, Kojo Forex wants to paint himself like, that
grassroots
grassroots story. But I mean, I have a similar story. I'm not from a poor home and I'm not from a rich home. Towards probably say like the poor. But when I'm telling my story, people say, you be DB. But I'm trying to tell them, no, it was not that easy at the beginning. Do you think it was something similar?
Absolutely. Okay. But the thing with me is that we kind of had our moments, real troughs in the journey. So even the middle class was not absolutely a stable middle class. You'd have middle class and it dips. You get what I mean? Like sometimes situational will just like lead family finances down and then suddenly it becomes like normal, So there were moments where things were absolutely like terrible. And then there were moments where we just say we're like the comfortable middle class.
You can manage it. Yeah. Interesting. That's a nice background. Now, anybody watching this video, right, at the end of the day, I want them to take 3 things out. One is understand money.
Yeah.
The second is what actually is finance.
Yeah.
Because your background, when I was trying to get you from last time, like I want this guy to come on so that people can really understand finance. Because you talk about money a lot, the whole Forex thing. And the third one is actually about Forex, right? Is it a scam? Is it fraud? Because people make noise about that.
What?
Forex.
Is Forex fraud?
Yes. Is it scam?
I think I've said this like more than 10 times on any platform.
I want the yes or no answer before we get to it.
Okay. No.
No. Okay, we'll go into that. Now, let's talk about the Forex from the beginning. You finished university. You did NSS for 1 year. You did army a little bit, then went right into Forex. What was the journey like? What pushed you? How did you start the whole learning process? Because that's a very interesting story. People have different stories, right? Let's say the first 5 years, how was like the money looking like and all that? And when I was watching your interview, you mentioned that the very first money you got from a friend on your birthday, which was $300, you put it right. Like all these things are interesting. Like you knew this was for you. How was that journey?
Okay, I'll tell you that story. So this was all in 2012, right? Mm-hmm. So yes. All the story you're talking about is 2012.
I was like 13 at that time.
Yeah. So 2011, I was done with high school, right? We were waiting for all our admission into the uni. I quite remember that my admission into uni was a very, tricky one. I didn't just have it sailing and smooth like that, in the sense that my family wanted me to just like buy several forms, right? As any family would have their kid do, buy UCC, buy KNUST, buy what. I said, no, I just want to attend Legon, so I didn't buy any forms. And then I just wanted to also specifically pursue administration, So when it came, I think that time they were just probably like my year group was probably like Ghana's history of most smartest, students, because that year 6As were like insane. Everybody was just so, and I had I mean 06, right? Was insane. And then I had aggregate 07. And then the cutoff point for business school was 06.
Wow.
Can you imagine? Like that's like the best. Either the best or nothing.
Yeah, they don't take
anything so else. I was given economics, what. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. So it was a struggle. And then I told my dad that I just want to do administration. So we went to the school administration, spoke to a few people, normal Ghana practice. Eventually we found our way in business school, but I did fee paying. So I absolutely did fee paying because I just missed the mark by one. And it was a painful thing, very
fee
painful.
paying is expensive.
I'm telling you, when my colleagues were paying like 300, 400 cedis then I was paying like 3,000.
10 times.
You can imagine, so it was very difficult for my family. My dad was just barely receiving any type of salary. But getting in there was the most exciting thing, Now, what led me into trading? So now I just thought myself like, okay, I'm in business school now. Now I'm just in the exactly in the part of the finance world that I've always been in or wanted to be in. So there were a bit of personal ambitions that just drove me into even the world of accounting and finance, because I wanted to also understand money, just like you've just brought up the topic, and then also didn't like the type of financial orientation that I had around my home. I was seeing like my friends, some of them come from very good homes, successful homes, very organized. And then I was asking myself, why must I always like beg and suffer think about suffering? So like I started questioning myself very early on in that level, that like, how do I start learning about money and making money very early on? So those were some of the inspirations that led me to even pursuing my initial professional course in the Ghana Stock Exchange, and then other ones also was that during those particular years, there were so many movies that were coming out specifically tied towards the financial market. We'll take an example being the Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
And that was like a very crazy, inspiring movie that like got me really even fired up that I really want to do this. The lifestyle that was shown in that whole movie was very inspiring, So like while my colleagues were absolutely focused on joining like the big fours after school because we're all reading accounting, they wanted to join the KPMG, PwC, and all of those things. I was like, my mind was somewhere else, absolutely somewhere else. I was not really like in class, when you get what I mean.
You're thinking of the
different things. People like accounting, and I hated accounting, I'll be honest. But just that, like I said, maybe God just blessed me with like the brains to be able to like go through process when I have to, even when I don't love them, But my interest in trading started from there because, like I said, I already knew that my family were going through a tough time, fending for us. So I was looking for alternative ways to make money. And I did search online, as anybody would, how can I make money online? The first point of call, you ask Google, and then Google give you so many options. Start a blog post, start a day, sell clothes, do this. So the blog post part even struck me. That was when, if you probably have been on Twitter for a while, you see that there was a time where I took a screenshot of a personal DM with me and Ameya Deborah, and I posted on the timeline. Because I was eager. I wanted to just do something, out of the norm, because I didn't want to like go to the accounting firms and all of those. Not as if those opportunities even did exist. I'll tell you one very funny story in that regard. So with all those pursuits was when just like I found online trading, and I'm like, okay, kind of syncs a bit with what I'm doing with the Ghana Stock Exchange already. And then I'm in a business school, so some of the terminologies are pretty much easy to comprehend. And so my journey there just began, but it just began as a means to make a subsistent income to supplement what my dad was giving me already. during those time, I should point out that most of my friends were already involved in like sport betting, and most of them were even doing well there. But it was just a field that I could not, succeed in.
Yeah.
I don't think that I ever, made any win when I even tempted. The best I could
same.
possibly do in bed was like break even,
That's all.
if not lose my money. So yeah, I just knew that was like not my field. So Forex became my field. So when I started doing it, like my colleagues would see me on my laptop, on my mobile phone, just with the graphs and charts, and people like, Kojo stay in. So they just left it for me. And those times, most of them were not even absolutely interested in it at all. Like,
I didn't know.
Perhaps had they known, it looked very foreign.
Yeah.
It looked, imagine, I'm talking about.
It still looks foreign, though, So 2012.
12, you can imagine, 2012, like most of the advanced platforms that we have in usage today did not even exist.
Wow.
So we're using like very old platforms, but that was just like my thing. So it was easy. But like people just left it for me. It's like, having that friend who is so like intrigued with sound and DJ and all, and you go in your laptop and they have all this. What is this? You get what I mean? So that was when I opened my chat, like people see, he knows what he's doing, like a geek type of thing.
Right.
But I loved it anyway, So that was where the story of when my friend gave me like the $300 and then it came in, making like that little bit of cash, until like I was done with school. So all through the school going years, I'd say that it was not any serious thing.
Okay, you were just doing it for
just.
But you know what I find interesting about the $300 part?
Yeah.
$300 in 2012 compared to, it was a lot of money. Even now. And the first thing that comes to mind is,
Can I tell you the truth?
Tell me.
It was really not a lot of money.
Really?
Yeah. Because the exchange rate then was still around 3 to 4.
Okay, so okay, I get it. Yeah. But to get that money, the first thing that comes to mind is, let me multiply this money. Like, it's a crazy mindset. Because did you lose the money?
I didn't actually lose the money. That money supplemented me for a good amount of time.
Because how many university students would think like that? The first thing they're thinking of is,
flip it, take it, make gazillion money. Yeah. Why I didn't lose it? Because like I said, I just did understand the rudiments of trading from a financial student's point of view. And understood some key terminologies and then the implications of those terminologies regarding the trading and the trading platform itself, especially like to talk about, let's say, leverage, right? A regular roadside guy who just got into trading will take some amount of education to understand the concept of leverage. Lot sizing, I did understand them from also a point of view. So I did not abuse them. These are the things that the regular guy would abuse and blow their account. Let's say if I set up a free, let's say $500 account for you, like before I leave here, and I say, like, I'm conditioning you that any trade setup, whether you're playing or not, right, play 0.01. It could take you 1 year and then you still have that account. You can ask your trader friend. Why? Because like 0.01 would barely hurt you. Even if the trade is going in the most unfavorable way, the loss you see probably like, let's say, $3. $5. So imagine the quantum of $5 that will blow a $500 account, if it makes sense.
Yeah.
So I understood this, right? But now if I'm saying that in the worst case scenario, you're seeing a profit of $3, $5, right? It means that it's not really much in the loss sense, similar to the profit sense. Yeah. But I was interested in that one. So I was always happy with the $5, the $10, the $7, because like as a student, those times when I convert that $5, $10, like, 40 cedis, 50 cedis. And as a university student, it could supplement me. You get what I mean? So that kept me for a good time, in that sense, that's just like what I want to add.
You said something, like you had background in finance, so it kind of helped you understand some of these things.
Yeah.
So do you think I have a computer science background, so if I'm to begin now, I'll definitely be disadvantaged at the beginning.
Yes.
But with the right amount of knowledge, I should be able to get there.
Absolutely.
But how do I put the question? Do you think every finance student has the upper hand?
To a greater extent. They don't have an upper hand in terms of like predictability or speculation aspect of the market. But they only have the upper hand in the theoretical part, understanding the concept and making due use of it. Right. Yeah, because trading respects no finance or
it doesn't care.
It doesn't care about anything. Yeah.
If I'm to start Forex, let's use me as an example, because I don't really know much. I don't know like the details of it. What would be like the steps to go? What are the things to understand? I mean, Forex has to do with currencies, right?
Yes.
And one thing that I had to come and agree to is all these currencies, all these things like even Bitcoin. this whole cryptocurrency things, digital currency. I was finding it difficult to believe because, like, what if we wake up one day and then boom,
It's gone.
right? Forgive me. One thing, some of the questions I'm going to ask are very dumb because I want everyone
No, of
watching to be
course.
able to understand.
There's nothing
Right.
like a dumb question, to be honest.
So, how would you explain Forex to someone, to myself, to my mother, to understand, okay, now I can put my $100 into this thing? Because when I was watching the interview, you said something like you were explaining to Sheldon how USD/GHS works and all that, right? Bro, most people don't care about that thing. In their head, okay, Forex, but the $100, shame, I'm putting my $100 in. I'll get 200 tomorrow. A lot of people have like the wrong idea about it. How would you explain it?
Well, I like how you put the last part. For anybody that really thinks around that logic with trading, tell you the truth, in the most respectable way, they're not welcome in our world because it doesn't really work that way. Maybe we have like some bad nuts that just portray that logic around like that.
Okay.
Perhaps you could also be inspired by some of the lifestyle we show, including myself.
Yeah, we'll
and
come
then
to
just
that.
think like that, but it's
Okay.
absolutely far from that. Trading or Forex, as you have it, it's a very professional endeavor, and it's absolutely like a career path
Okay.
that requires the same amount of effort that you put towards anything that you want to do. You talked about your background in computer science, right? Imagine like all the hardwares and softwares and programming and coding you learned. And then I just wake up, me with absolutely no background, and say, okay, I want to challenge you in the coding or software management. Or I have no idea about like the platforms you use, or you get what I mean?
Yeah.
But even if you decide to teach me, you can imagine how long it will take
yeah.
me. But people come into trading and then they don't consider all of that. You consider that for your computer science, but you don't want to consider that for
the
for
Forex.
Forex, someone the one that even has the enormous opportunity to change your life within a short span if it works in your favor. I don't know if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
So that's like the most wrongest perspective anybody will have. But in clarifying or perhaps even clearing up your question about what trading or Forex is, right? Think about it this way. I always like to put the most basic example, which is like comparing it to like what we have people do with the Forex bureaus, right? Like, let's say you traveled to South Africa, right? And then you went on your holidays and then you came back with some South African rands, right? You came back with, let's say, 100 rand, right? You're not going to spend a rand here, right? Whatever you choose to buy, like nobody's going to accept that, regardless of the value it holds. Unless you go to the Forex Bureau and say, hey, I have 100 rand. How much does it convert
to cedis?
To cedis? And they'll tell you that, okay, 1 rand, 100 rand. I mean, 1 rand is equivalent to, let's say, 9 pesos. So 100 rand, 90 cedis. Okay. Then you get what? Your 90 cedis, and then you can spend in Ghana, right? Now, what you must ask yourself is that, who sets that rate?
Good question.
You get what I mean?
Yeah.
Who sets that rate that the Forex Bureau is giving you?
Yeah.
Is the market.
What market?
The Forex market.
Okay. Which point in the Forex market?
So the Forex market is a decentralized platform.
Okay.
Decentralized is like the most ambiguous but simple term, such that it means that there is no physical office space for anybody to walk to and say, this is the global Forex market, right? But in decentralized logic or economy, the forces of demand and supply determines the price point. Like in Ghana now, is there anybody, when I say body, I mean an organization, that sets up the price that iPhone 16 must be selling at? But you go for everywhere, you can pick the average. So it's the same thing in the financial market. There's always like an average price that will trade. That's why no Forex Bureau would have the same rate.
Okay.
That's just how it works. Just that from the physical point, it's no more physical. It's like digital version of the physical point. You get what I mean? So anything that, in these days, anything that is physical, you can like make it digital. So that's just like the logic that works with trading. So more like, imagine multiple Forex bureaus working online now. You get me? But this time, like everybody can participate in determining like what value to buy an instrument at and what value to sell an instrument. And then the forces of the demand and supply would determine the average price at which the exchange rate would trade day in and out. You get what I mean? But it's such a huge, economy, or let's say a huge system to just summarize in this line alone, because the forces that determine that price is not only the demand and supply that I mentioned. The central banks also have their bid to play in it. In fact, one of the biggest bid to play. When I say central banks, you know, then the Bank of Ghana, the Federal Bank of US, and all of those things. And then even like the big corporations, right? Let's say the big banks, right? You can talk about the HSBC, the JP Morgans, even when I said initially even said big corporations, I can talk about the Apples, the Samsung. So these people, their role in the financial market may not necessarily always be for speculative reasons. You know, for me, my involvement in the market is purely speculation. I want profit, right? I'll make it make sense, right? Like I'm always trading GBP, which is the pound versus the dollar. I'm saying that the pound will go up against the dollar, and then when it goes in my favor, I make money, right? But for, let's say, Apple, their interest in perhaps like changing dollars into, let's say, Chinese renminbi or let's say Great Britain pound may not be for profit seeking, but perhaps they are fulfilling some financial obligation to the other side. They are paying their workers over there. They are fulfilling some contract that they signed, supplies, but they are still involved in the financial market, and perhaps their volume could be so huge that it could just contribute to the change in the demand. So the factors are a lot. You get what I mean? And it's real life application. It's everyday application. People think it's abstract, like, oh, let's take Forex out of ourselves. It's like some...
I like an example
you get what I mean?
The interview with Sheldon, where you were using the USD and the Ghana cedis. And you mentioned, let's take a Forex. I'm just adding to what you're explaining. Let's take a Forex. If everyone is coming in to change $100, and currently $100 is about 1,600. If they realize that the number of people coming have increased, they can say, okay, now $100 is 2,000.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Absolutely. I like that part. But the part you were talking about speculation is very interesting, because what influences the speculation? I don't know if you get me. So if you are talking about the pound like this, okay, pound is going to go up. What are you standing on to make that decision? Because you should have some...
Are you asking it as a personal question to me or as a generalized
As a personal question to you?
That's like my financial expertise.
Okay.
That's what makes Kojo Forex. This question you just asked is what makes Kojo Forex.
But you teach people that.
No, but let's address that question first. Right? This question you asked is the most important part of the question while we're here. That what makes me know that this is going to go up against this. If it was something anybody could, then there is no special... There wouldn't be anything special about me. I mean, let's put it this way. Like anybody can wake up and then start selling food on the roadside. You know, in Ghana here, even though when you go to some countries, you cannot just wake up and say, I'm selling food. You need some licenses and stuff like that. Not as if like there is no licensing procedure here, but you know that it's a free market bring that into trading. Anybody can just wake up and get started in trading, right? But can anybody get their, let's say, skill set on to that level that makes them instantly like a professional? That's where the difference comes in, you know? So like for some of us, that's just like the sacrifices that we put in, and then that differentiated us from the bunch, you know?
I find it very interesting. So still on the topic of predicting, right? You make this prediction, but it's backed by data.
Yes.
Like what's going on around the world. Like what if you had to make a trade right now, what are you looking at?
Okay. Okay. I like how you're going in deep, but I also tried to make it
too technical.
Yes, not to make it too technical. Right. So in trading, we have like in fact, in these days, we can even say like 3 means of speculative analysis, right? We have the technical analysis, right? Then we have the fundamental analysis. And in today's world, we even factor the sentimental analysis, right? Okay. So technical, fundamental, and then sentimental. But I'll address the technical first. So think about technical as like using the historical happenings in the market, right, to predict the future outcomes. And it's similar to what our fathers and grandfathers used to do with the lotto papers. Realize that every number there's like something that happened some years and then their permutation and what. And say, okay, look at 1940, this repeated. We do the same in trading.
Okay.
So when I'm watching the graph, I'm like, okay, in the year 2017, gold hit let's say 1700 and then dropped. Now we're in 2023 and it has hit the same 1700. What are the factors to determine that it is actually going to now break this level or for this time calm down? And that's like one of my speculative bases. And what I just described is what a technical analyst will do. So we take what has happened previously in the chart, historically, and then use it to, analyze currently what is happening to determine future movement. Absolutely, that's for a technical. And a fundamental analyst, right, would go deeper into, transcending beyond what the technical analyst or the chart would just see. For a fundamental analyst, you may be interested in two aspects of the economy, which is like the microeconomics and then the macroeconomics, right? So if you're talking about the micro, it's talking about, or even combining the micro and macro, we're looking at the interest rate, gross domestic product, inflation rate, unemployment rate. We have something we call the PMI, PPI. These are very technical terms, but these are basically the fundamental guy watching that. Okay, if I compare, let's say, the interest rate, right, in US, right, and then the interest rates in, let's say, UK, right, which one is offering more return? Okay, US has interest rate of 4.5 and UK has interest rate of 2.0. If I ask you to put your money where would you put it?
4.5.
4.5 US means that for them having a higher interest rate, right, is influencing or fuel a lot of investment into their economy. But you cannot rely on just interest rate as a reason to make that conclusive decision, because interest rate moves hand in hand with inflation as well. Perhaps the interest rate is 4.5, but inflation is, let's say, 10. Means that you'll be investing there, but inflation will steal all your money. But perhaps the one who has interest rate of 2 has inflation of, let's say, 1. You get that dynamic. So you cannot just conclude on, but that is like what a real fundamental analyst will do, right? And the sentiment is where you have like so many platforms literally like running polls to say, okay, between all of us in this room, who thinks this will go up or this will go up? And then
you
use that information to make trading decision.
I'm still being convinced to get into this market. And I was telling one of the guys before we started, he asked me if I do trading. I'm like, no, because I want to have the right amount of information. I want to understand how it works before I get into it. And I like the 3 things you just mentioned explains Forex. I mean,
absolutely
makes it. I mean, people mention that it's a risk, but then if you understand these 3 things, it's just like sport betting. I've done it before. Before, the people that bet know, one, they look at the players that are coming, they look at the past matches, they look at what is going on in the league, and they say, okay, this match is. I find it interesting when people are even able to predict the scores, but then they're using information from the past to do that. So it's similar.
Absolutely similar.
Kojo, you on the show, 2 of the interviews, you mentioned that you lost $30,000. I mean, not more than $30,000. And I don't want to ask you what your biggest loss has been, because you already said that. But I want to understand why that money is not that high, because you're talking about how you have friends or people who have lost 100.
Of course.
More like higher. What do you think you were doing different that to make sure that your loss is not that high?
Well, high is relative, even because that 30,000 is probably like somebody's, But I was saying that it was not that high. It was in relation to the account size that I was trading. Because like, let's say your account size is $10,000 and then you lose, let's say, $1,000, right? That's 10% of your 10%, account. In the same way, if you have $1 million, right, and then you lose 100,000, right, that's like 10% gone again. But look at the scale, right? Somebody's going to be but you get it. So it's the same logic with regards to like that thing that I said, though. So relative to the account size that I was trading, it was not that much. Yes, it was not that much.
But are you careful with the loss in terms of risk and like the kind of risk you take?
The thing with trading is that it's like there's always a way that I put it, but sometimes it takes a while for me to get it. More like be disciplined, learn the rudiments after that, or learn the rules. After that, you can choose to break the rules. It's like every professional environment. When you're starting work, and then you have to report to your managers. As a fresher, you're always coming very early, prim and proper,
Dressed nicely.
dressed
On
nicely.
point.
After 1 year, 3 years,
Well, to work.
exactly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like that. It's like that in trading as well. When you're coming, you want to be disciplined, understand it. But when you get to a point like this, for me, like let's say today, I can choose to like fund, let's say $5,000, right, and see some opportunity on the market and say, okay, for what it may be, I'm just risking the whole 5,000. Right? I know that it's not what I'm supposed to do,
but
I can do it because I have the right and what it takes to do that now. Perhaps you watching me from home, you don't have the same financial capabilities and stance like me to do that. So you follow what you must do now. But people jump the gun. Instead of following the rudiments, they're like, oh no, I've seen this guy do this, I can also do that. No, it doesn't work that way. You get what I mean? So if you're asking that, do I follow the rules? I do follow sometimes. Sometimes I choose to break them, but I have earned the right to do that. Yeah.
How does it feel when you lose money? I mean, not even now, because now I don't know if it still touches you when you lose money, but maybe at the beginning where you were still trying to build this, was it like, how was your emotional and mental health then?
With the $300 part, right? It was like me risking very tiny bit, and then for practice, and so those moments didn't really have like some crazy emotions attached to it. But there was a story after that 300, right? So after my few bits of success in that one, then I funded $1,000 account. That was where my real emotions took place ever, like my first time ever that I had. I was in a friend's house. We were very close, so we used to like sleep in each other's house. But that day I was in his house, and I remember I was in the trade GBP USD, which is like the Great Britain pound versus the United States dollar. And then I was buying, right, when the market was literally like going down, right? And those times with my $300, there was something I used to do in finance. We call it averaging your losses, or even in trading, right? Averaging your losses is like you buy in expectation that price will go up. Price come down, then you buy again.
Right.
Price come down, then you buy again, in the expectation that when they go up, then all the buy will make it. So that was like me doing that. And the price kept going down. I couldn't sleep the whole night. I'm not even joking. I couldn't sleep and then the crazy part, it did not finish my money so early. There's like something we call volatility or momentum, where the price just going split. For this one, I was just crawling.
You're just watching your money drawing
small.
Cool.
You get a feeling small. It lasted the whole day. The next night it was still there. The next morning, before it finally blew that much. So you can imagine me in hopes and in anticipation and anxiety, waiting. This thing should come up. Then I'll add some position. I'll put some lines there. I'm saying, okay, when it comes here, I'll add another one. And I think it just kept going. So that taught me like a very bitter lesson. But also one major thing that it taught me, because eventually I came to find out, is that it's a phrase which like most people, especially advanced traders, would be familiar with. We say that the market can react irrational far more than you can remain solvent, right? So you thinking that your $1,000 is your solvent account, right? The market could have kept going for the whole year, and then you think that, oh, it will come back up. No, that thing doesn't exist. So it was a very, very strong lesson that I learned very early on. But from there on, I don't think that I particularly found myself in a situation like, even though there were like situations where like I'd lose control. You can lose control in trading. Too much excitement can trading is a very crazy environment. If you think you know much about yourself, start trading. Then you realize that there are so many things you don't know about yourself. You would know that you are probably the most impatient person in the world. And then you also know that perhaps you are the most greedy person in the world as well. Trust me, it will teach you the most toughest things, And then the thing with it is that, like, that indeed I am greedy and I am impatient.
Yes.
But it's difficult to find help for yourself.
Right.
And then you're still wallowing in the same suffering and frustration. And then you need people who have been there, done that, to now talk you and walk you out of it. And that's where sometimes some of us even come in with the experiences we share. So for us, we say that those experiences are like the school fees we paid, to get to the experience we want. Yeah.
Because that's a lot of emotion. Because even with betting, because I mean, at the beginning you mentioned sports betting, right? I tried sports betting sometime, and the greedy thing is so honest. It's so true, because you put in 100, you make 500, and you say, okay, I think I can multiply this 500 to 1,000. By the time you realize, you're back to zero.
Absolutely.
Because you're just being greedy.
Yes.
Interesting. Is Forex legal?
It is legal.
It's legal.
Yes.
So why do people always make you look like it's not?
How?
Because they're always shouting about, oh, Kojo Forex, they're fraud or scam. Or even on Twitter, I think I did get in towards the end of the year. You had...
so let me tell you the difference, right? People that come online to perhaps make any form of allegations, accusations, are not necessarily tainting the image of Forex.
Okay.
They're tainting my personal image.
What did you do today?
I mean, we have to investigate that. But when I say my personal image, it's like perhaps I look too young to have accumulated all that I did and then accustomed that success to Forex or trading. So they think that there's something illicit behind it. Perhaps I'm doing some romance scam online or fraudulent.
Can we answer them? Your Forex, everything you have, your lifestyle, your cars, is it from Forex, Kojo?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then other businesses that are built today which I'm not going to talk about anyway.
Absolutely.
But but if you get what I mean, so I don't think that most people direct that taint towards like Forex or trading.
It's just
it's just like by choice of saying, oh, this guy. Yesterday, I think I posted a picture when I said, if you start making money, try to invest in land. And then I went under the comments, somebody was like, stop the fraud or stop. We kept writing multiple like stop. I don't know. I've forgotten what it was, but it was not the person attacking Forex, but just attacking. It's a stereotype, in Ghanaian. But you tend to grow and deal with these things. Yeah.
Is there a reason why you put your lifestyle out there in terms of like the cars you post? You're very open when it comes to that part of things.
Yeah.
I'm sure every single car you own is online in terms of like the pictures around that.
Yes. The only one that is not is a few ones that are both my in-laws.
Yeah, right. You got I think your wife a car on his birthday or something. Correct me if that's correct. Like you post all of this, but people still come for you. Like, why? I don't know, Unjai. Why don't you stop? And is there a reason why you do it?
Okay, so I see you tweet as well. When you invited me, I went on your, and then it's like you were tweeting some few stuff that I could recall, right? But how did you feel doing that? It was just like you expressing your normal self, isn't it?
Yeah.
You did not practically say, I'm going to.
Yeah.
So for me, that's like my expression. It's like, that's what the social platform was made for. Did we say we should come and post our sufferings and hunger and begging and no? They said like, feel free there, isn't it?
Yeah.
What really is social media platforms built for? It accommodates everything. The good, the bad, the ugly. So if I'm presenting the good part, you guys don't want the good part, we should all come and be begging for giveaway. Who will do the giveaway if we're all begging?
Yeah.
You get what I mean? So I don't practically think and say, I am going on this platform today. It's like, okay, I'm excited about this. Like let's say I was coming here and I saw you. I could just take a picture with you next minute. It's just there. You get what I mean? Only thing I just do differently is that obviously I still do take care of or consider my security when doing all of these things. I don't just post, let's say I'm in a party and I say, hey guys, I'm here and all of those funny things. But for me, it's just like expressing. And then also it's more like my digital record.
Right.
Because there are certain times where we lose our mobile phones, our history of some records we kept.
You want to be able to find everything.
Yes, and there are certain times where like my throwback pictures of myself, I can't find them. Then I have to like go in my archives on Instagram. Then I find that, I posted this picture in 2017, 2012. So those are like some of the logics why I used to like post there. So there are very various reasons. Also, the motivation aspect comes in. I can't deny that.
And it's funny how people don't see it from that side.
And then I had a conversation about 2 days ago with Kobiche. I think you know him, right? The blogger. And he said something that was also very intriguing, right? Perhaps I thought about that very slightly, but he highlighted it for me to even ponder on it the most, because he said that for our forefathers that existed before us, there was obviously nothing like social media and all that thing. So we cannot really have any digital footprint of them. But now imagine like, let's say 200 years from now, if Instagram still exists, if Facebook still exists, Twitter still exists, my great-grandchildren are going to look at this. My grandfather, he used to ball so hard.
Right.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's funny how people don't see it from the motivation side of things and just relate it to scam and fraud. Because I was talking to Peter when we were coming. I mean, we're all talking here about the cars you have, and I'm like, this guy has money. And someone was like, he should come and give us money. And another
Yeah.
person was like, nah, he should come and teach us Forex. That's the kind of mindset
Yeah.
certain people should have. But on social media, unfortunately, the Ghanaian youth have
Yeah.
decided that, nah, let's just drag this man. For the people that are trying to get into Forex, right? I mean, you've been teaching, I think you have a Telegram page where you post some of your
Yes.
things there. You had a time when you were doing a school where you were teaching people. Does it still run?
Yes.
Like, what are some of the mistakes you've seen people do, especially when they start their trading? Because, for example, when I was on campus, I used to teach people design because that's where my background started from. And when you start, you get to see that, okay, the reason why this person is doing this mistake is because of this and that and that. What do you think are some of the mistakes beginners, especially in Forex, are doing? Also, mainly for my team member.
Yeah. You'll be surprised to even realize that we've highlighted some of them. In fact, if not most of them, the greed part, the impatience part, the disregard for money.
Right.
And then basically following the due process of, like, let's say, even risk management, and also understanding that the effort and requirement that would be due to any professional endeavor, let's say you doing your computer science, doctor, whatever, you require the same level of, effort in trading as well, and so once a beginner just lay plain all of these issues and then introspectively decide to tackle them one by one, and I think that they should start solving those issues. But they are very, like, open. It's not like something that is hidden. You have to think too much to know. If I ask your colleague one or two questions, right, he'll start telling his own problem, not me even finding them out. Because you realize that there was a situation where he was impatient or where he over leveraged. Over leveraging is like, let's say he knows that he has $1,000 account he needs to put in trading. You have something called lot size of, let's say, like 0.1. Then he got so greedy or ambitious and decided to put to, let's say, 50. You're blowing your account easily there when it goes against you in that sense. So yeah, that's like a few things I can highlight.
And is there any book you recommend in this regard?
The books in trading, there are a lot, right? So for me, it took me a good amount of years to be able to, like, pick the important nuggets from various books that I read. And I think it would be daunting to keep mentioning these books because, like, it will take somebody to read, let's say, maybe 50 books and then go find those niche nuggets themselves. So that's why I think, like, for me, it's always encouraging that I point people to, like, maybe my videos on YouTube or even any past posts regarding to trading that I've done, because that's me sharing my personal experiences and nugget that I've found. But if people still feel like they want to go on their own journey in picking out nuggets from some of the books that I've read, which is like Technical Analysis of Stock Trend, I've mentioned it so many times. That book's like 800 page. You imagine you want to sit down and read 800 page, and then there's also the 3 dimensions of Forex trading that has to do with, like, absolutely fundamental analysis. This one wrote by one woman called Anna Cullen. That's also probably another 400 page book. The page books in trading is a lot, and then there's also the psychological part, which is Trading in the Zone. That's probably about, let's say, 300 page book or 200. You have to read that, but that's probably working on your psychology. But there are just dozens of them that I've read, that I just picked cues from that eventually. I've been trading for 13 years. So imagine, like, the information that I've accumulated over the 13 years, and I can't point just one book to say this is where it's coming from, but I still do read today, till date, yeah.
We'll put a description, I mean, your YouTube in the description. 13 years. When you started, how long did it take you to start seeing good amount of money?
When you say good amount, to say, like, when I started really building, like, a successful career out of it, I'd say it was not really until 2020.
So just 5 years ago.
Yes.
What kept you going?
The thing is that if you look at, like, the cumulative years, we can break them down in a way that makes more sense. Because I said that 2012 to 2016 was my school going years, which is 4 years of my initial experience in trading. And what could I have done in those years? Basically nothing. 2016 to 2017, national service and still trading, right? But just as a side hustle because NPA was still paying me. 2017, 2018, that's like within the years where I had like that 1 year contract with NPA plus my endeavor in the military, which didn't really end the way I wanted. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's another 2 years already gone after school. So making about 6 years
6 years.
already. So 2018 and 19 was like when I just went in with just nothing distracting me, just trading. So in essence, you can see that 18, 19, then 20 started making sense. You get what I mean? So then it adds up, right?
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, Forex, like you said at the beginning, there's a lot to cover it. Already, my mind is blown away. I want to talk about money.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
You're making all this money.
Yeah.
But if you don't really understand how money works, I don't think you'll be able to continue.
Yes.
Right. And I feel like a lot of people, and maybe I myself, I'm sure when you start talking, I'll find a few things I didn't know, have the wrong mindset about money. They understand money wrongly. What do you think? And this is a funny question, but what do you think money is? How should people think of money?
That's a big question, you know. But for me, money is a tool, right? A tool that does what? A tool that, for me specifically, just buys time. You know, and that's like the epitome, right? But obviously, you know that there are so many other uses of money. You can buy all your luxury goods and fend for yourself, but at the grand scheme of it, right, the enormous amount of money you have, right, just buys you a lot of time from perhaps doing some things that you perhaps don't want to toil yourself to do, you know. And we can break it down in so many ways and angles as well, right? So like the first question I'd say, like, it's just a tool for me,
right?
Just like sorry,
no problem.
You need your laptop to start programming, and then you need your internet, or you need your cameras here to start rolling. You know, you need money to do certain things, right? And in this conversation, the microphone, the camera are your tools, right? So when you talk about in other aspects, then the money actually becomes like that tool that you need. Without it, you cannot actually start. You know, so even in the premise of your setup here, the initial, let's say, requirement was the money, because you needed money to buy the cameras and stuff like that. So in this case, you use it as a tool. So that's like how I think about money, right? But the end point being like to buy us time, right? I also concluded like a lot of questions in between the line, right? To get to the point, right? To buy us time in the sense that what is your ultimate goal here if we eliminate the motivational aspect, the teaching people impact? There's some level of financial benefit to it, you know, in the grand scheme of things. You know, when you become so big, partners are coming on, investors or sponsors, you know, and let's say you want to do this, you know, aggressively, putting all in it for the next, like, let's say 20 years, or even a good average of 30 years, which is like the average lifetime working years of any man, right? Then let's say, give or take, you're like, let's say 20 or 25 or whatever now, right? I'm just guessing. Then that means we're talking about a good 55 years, right? You're just like 5 years away from pension.
You guessed my age right, but let's continue.
You know, now if you're 5 years away from pension, like, why pension, right? Okay, so after pension, what next, right? So you mean that pension, you want to relax, right? You want to just like enjoy with your old wife and go on vacations. So what are you doing then? You're buying time for yourself. And on pension, you assume that you're not probably going to be so strong to be able to do the things that you're doing today. That's why you're putting all the effort today. So now, if in today's terms, you're making like, let's say 50,000 cedis every month, and then you're accumulating it till the next 30 years, right? Then it means that from all your expenses and then savings, by 30, you should have like a wholesome amount of money that you feel like, from now that I'm 60 years till like 90, or when God would call me, I probably don't have to lift a finger, but still feed and do whatever. So you've got time for yourself, you know? So think about it, if in today's terms, as young men, right? Let's not even go to the long term, being an old person type, right? Imagine that you can assess yourself and say, for me, as forgive me that I missed Reagan, right?
Yes. Yeah, Reagan.
Me as Reagan, I need only, let's say, to put it in simple terms, 1,000 cedis a month to survive.
Mhm.
I don't mean here be if you give me 1,000, I'm okay as Reagan. Which means that for the year, Reagan, how much do you need then? Is it 12,000, isn't it? That means that if I give Reagan, if all things being equal, this amount should be able to stay the same for a considerable time.
Yeah.
If I give Reagan, let's say 120,000 cedis,
That's 10 years.
I should be able to buy 10 years of your time with you doing nothing.
Yeah.
You get what I mean?
Yeah.
So in that sense, the more money you have in your bank account or to your wealth or whatever you call it, the more time you have, and that time you can channel it into doing anything, perhaps even multiplying the same money sources or going on vacation or chilling like Kojo, posting it online. You get my logic.
Yeah.
That's how I think about money.
How does someone get to the point, and this comes to like the financial literacy part of things, where like they have enough money? Because we're talking about the end goal is time, right? But you wouldn't wait for 60 retirement to have that time to be spending, right? You're able to afford vacations, go on vacation. What are some of the things you think people should do in terms of, let's say, a 25-year old after they're making money, right? What should I be putting my money into? How should I be spending my money? You spend a lot on cars and all that, but you have money. So I'm sure you're still doing your trading, you have investments, you mentioned you have other businesses and all that, right? Some of these things, even if you stop trading, I'm sure will take Kojo a long time. What advice would you give to a 25-year-old that, okay, you have this amount of money, do this, do that? I mean, don't take financial advice from here, please.
You mentioned about the cars, and I was just laughing in my head because for me, some of my cars are not liabilities in that sense, but assets.
Okay.
And I mean, I quite recently purchased like a Lamborghini. I don't think that the price is going to depreciate in that sense. And even when you come from even a country like Ghana, where assets like cars are supposed to like depreciate, you tend to have them even appreciating, which is insane, isn't it? So like I quite recently just sold one of my cars. I've been using that car for like good 6 years. And I tell you the truth, I even made profit
from the person that bought is watching you.
The person knows that I made profit, but like, so I mean, obviously, what I can say with that, even though it seems like funny, is that obviously inflation eroded a lot of the value that that sum would have done in the last 5 or 6 years ago. But the value is still like, in essence, the numbers still represent the same. So that's just by the way, by in the conversation for my cars, like I classify them as part of like my working tools or assets. There's a part of my job that literally requires reaching out to very big investors. There's like levels in this thing, and then like it's like a blind man telling you that they're gonna like lead you to heaven or whatever it is. Like you're asking yourself, like you don't know your way already. So it's like you can be the most modest person, and say, okay, for me, I have money, but I don't want to show off, I don't want to buy anything, I'm just like literally staying in my 1 bedroom or whatever. You could probably have like $1 million in your account. Go and stand in front. No, never like take you. Right. Like you get what I mean? They'll never regard you. Nobody's going to listen to you. So what? You have the millions.
So you need to come in a certain way.
Absolutely.
Right.
And that becomes like an asset than like a liability.
Yeah, that's true.
You get what I mean? So that's just how my things work for me. There's so many opportunities that I've had. There's so many negotiations that I've been able to bid higher
because of the way
I came. You get what I mean? That people just don't see from that sense. All they see is that he just bought another car. He just Dubai is a very competitive space, So if you want to be relevant there, then you some of these things are just what highlights you, because apart from that, like everybody's nice in Dubai, everybody's respectable, everybody's friendly, but not everybody has a Cybertruck. Not everybody has a Lamborghini. So that just like sticks you aside, But I want to just shift it also to the question you asked. If you just rephrase it
about briefly. If a 25-year-old who has started making money, what advice would you give to them?
Good. So one thing, or let me say, in a way that I'll put it, is that for me, I said this also in the most recent program or event that I went, I said like for a young person within that age range, right? You should look introspectively into yourself and pick one thing that you think you're good at
Okay.
or you want to be good at,
Okay.
right? So it's two ways. Either you think you're good at it or you really want to be good at it, right? And assess the real benefits that comes with all of these things, right? You cannot say, oh, I want to be so good at, let's say, I don't know, the most meager thing, and then when you become good at it and it's not fetching you the necessary wealth or result you want, then you start blaming anybody. You know, I don't know if you get what I mean.
I get your point. Yeah.
Because certain choices are not scalable.
Right.
You get what I mean?
Yeah.
So you, the young person, but if that suits your comfort level, that's fine. You get what I mean? Maybe that's what you want. You want to be so okay and good at one thing that the best you can buy you is maybe like a bicycle, and then you are successful. That's fine. You know, everybody has their choice, but you have to look introspectively into like what I want to do. But for me, I just attached the financial burden, the scalability of that thing, you know, to it. You know, so I'm passing that same logic. That one thing, you know, you want to zone in, put everything in it. You know, I put it like in your context. Like, let's say, like you want to do like, you know, there's this guy in US who also has the same name, Reagan, and then you can already imagine the quantum of money he's making from his podcast. He's making most of that money from his podcast. You know why? Because he thought about so many ways to scale it. Okay. You know, you're probably watching the YouTube and enjoying it, but you don't know the deals behind it. Just perhaps the bottle on the table, the amount of money those people paid him, the people he's inviting, the connections he formed. He literally had the opportunity to interview the richest man in the world. Right. You get what I mean? So for him, he perhaps thought about that scalability of that simple thing somebody will see as a podcast. So for me, I thought about like what I wanted to do with like trading, you know, not just like today, tomorrow, like 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. I'm just saying it in a general industry that as a young person within that age range, just think of what you want to do. Maybe you want to just sell cars. You know, maybe you want to just build houses. Maybe you want to just trade in clothing, whether new clothing, used clothing. You want to create your own clothing brand. Maybe you want to sell shoes. It could be just absolutely anything. But once you find out that one thing, you want to be an authority in that field. You know, let your name be like a household name in that field. You know, and that's where like the financial reward comes in, because after you've gained that, you know, grounds and authority in that field, you became like a mastery in that field. The financial reward will find a way creeping in, you know, and then at that place, your financial literacy will begin to test you at that point. You know, how are you going to invest? How are you going to manage your expenses? Because your lifestyle will suddenly start indirectly crawling up, and then your expenses will follow along with the lifestyle, whether I like it or not. So are you going to be so disciplined to cut some expenses, you know, because those are the key years where you have to think about plowing back into what you're doing and saving, and also living the best part of your life, because life will still be happening for you then. You know, if you're 25 now, you think, oh, I have all the time and stuff like that. Before you realize like 30 years, 31, 32, and then you're suddenly not just thinking about buying the most sophisticated camera and computers, but okay, I want to start a family. I want to do this. I want to do that. And then your whole mind shift just is divided into just not only your interest, but also with other responsibility. That naturally come, you know. I had a friend who used to always say that he's going to get married at 40, 45 because Jay-Z got married at this. Today is like 31, 32. He's already thinking you know. He's already bought a house and organized it. And
for his wife,
I'm telling you, he's literally waiting to welcome. And I always laugh at him like, why? Because he
said 40,
45, so why now? You know, but I know that life just happens. You know, it gets to that point where but so you can imagine that you need those intense years to organize those things in the most fastest way possible, you know. So once that thing works out, that one thing that, you know, so I said in that program that, you know, to make riches, you know, you need one thing, right? And then to make wealth, then you need so many other things. You get me? Look around. It's very salient, and then it's not so in people's faces, and it just takes you to calm down and observe before it makes sense to you, right? But any rich man you can point out, wealthy man, billionaire, that was just like that one thing that they were so good at. You can talk about Elon Musk and his pursuit with PayPal. That was what gave him his big break. We make fun of, despite and say his cassette.
Yeah.
We make fun of even Richard
Richard
Niyama
yeah.
Kwe, and then we say he said he watched
5,000
plates 5,000.
plates, yeah.
Whatever it is, there was like that one thing that some people zoned in on. Perhaps like, let's say 10 years from now, if you see Kojo in properties or his name being mentioned in some tech field or whatever it is, you say, oh, this guy started making his money from Forex.
Right.
You got them. Let's say you zone in on your content stuffs, and then next minute Reagan has like some properties or some different endeavor. Was, oh, this guy, we know him, or he's starting podcasts where you do this thing. But at this point, you're only building your riches, know, and then once it stabilizes, then you can broaden it out. So that's just like what that young man within that age range need to see, life. You don't need that diversification now. The small money you have, you get like 5,000. Make I go start this business. Make I also do this. Then say put your eggs on Amazon. No, just put it in just that one thing that you want it to be significant enough, and then after that you can just like look elsewhere. Yeah.
Beautiful. Do you? This is funny too. Do you think money fixes problem? Those jokes that fly around.
Yeah.
Actually, my problem there just be money I need them. Then the rich person will be like, money doesn't fix all problem. All those things. You've been making. I have one last question that will end everything with. You've been making money and all that. Do you think it fixes problems actually?
It does actually. It does fix a lot of problems.
Okay.
There was this time I made a tweet. I was saying that I think I quoted that money doesn't solve problems. I quoted in a very satirical way, But obviously people got the context of what I was saying, because like, what do you mean by money does not solve all problems? It does solve a lot of problems. That's why women will tell you that it's better they cry in a Lamborghini than
Uber. And then you mentioned something where you're talking about savings and all that. Do you actually believe in saving? Because I mean, online and all that, people have been talking about. One thing I'm trying to do is understand how money actually works, finance and all that.
Yes.
And then they're saying it's not good to save in banks and like the interest rates, invest in this and then
Okay, you asking me that question is the most radical thing you do. Why? Because as traders, right, we are our own investment managers.
Okay.
Right? When you make your money from, let's say, the podcast or any, I just keep referring you because there's no simple example to use. You probably think of, maybe even come back to me and say, Kojo, I get this 10K, make I put here, what you go do? But me, do you think I'd necessarily think about somebody to go to that I get this, do this for me?
Right.
You get me? It comes back to me, that's just like that little bit of difference that makes it difficult with traders. But the thing is that it doesn't mean that we don't invest, right? Because we know that for volatile investment options, then we'll come to our side. But for a stable investment, then that's just when we look at the treasuries, the bonds, and all of those things, because those are like salient and then low risk, guaranteed type of wealth. So like, forgetting about that context and restricting our conversation to like savings, if you're here and then you don't save, you're doing yourself the biggest mistake ever, because like that's just how riches are built or wealth is built. You probably saw me though, hey, this guy get money here, he bought this Lamborghini, bought this, but that money didn't fall from the skies. You know how? Just think about it in a practical way. Most people don't. I keep literally exposing my thought process online, but it probably takes the most patient and well thought through person to see through what I'm saying, because I would make certain comment like, I'm not spending my money now. I'm sitting on my hands. If you see me balling in November, don't come and cry. Me talking absolutely about savings, because like for me, most of the year when it begins, like from December to January is like my planning and goal setting years. I mean months. So I decided, okay, this year in 2025, what do I really want to achieve? Okay, maybe I want to set up some, new company. I want to build some 2 houses. I want to buy a new car. Just anything of your choice. We have our own preferences in the world. So I would write like out all the things that I want to like do, and then not just by wishful thinkings, I also write in accordance the effort means that I need to put to achieve those things, which is like boiling down to making those goals practical enough. I can't just be here and then say, okay, I'm going to buy a jet of 100 million. Like, it's not practical enough for me, But if I write that, okay, I'm going to buy a car of like 500,000, is very achievable. 1 million is even still achievable, So you cut your coat according to your sizing, like the goal setting. So I'd really like just do that in my first 1 month before the year begins. And then I'd write like a timeline of when I feel like I can achieve that, because obviously watching yourself, again, I use the term introspectively from the previous years, which is like we're in 2025 now, but you can watch that from 2024. You know how your finances were, meddling with you from January all through to, December, whether you had a stable source of income or like a fluctuating one, you kind of strike some average and know. And then if you think they are going to double your effort, then you kind of increase, your potentials of what you can even make the most out of that year. Then if you feel like that whole year can buy me an iPhone, then you probably don't want to be writing a car, or that thing can buy me a car, then you don't want to be writing a jet. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though we say, okay, be ambitious, what, but you have to also be realistic in your pursuit as well. So all these things that I mentioned boils down to saving.
Savings, yeah.
And that's where like the aspect of I would always use the term delayed gratification
Right.
comes in, because like my most recent car that people may have seen on social media, I wanted to buy that thing like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, but I just knew the amount of resources was going to take away from me when I just used that pursuit and like zeal and desire to just buy it now because I want to reach there now, sometimes it's just like that. It comes to you, but also you need good people around you, So my wife is a very good counsel, so there are certain things I want this, I could have like the means to buy, but I know that it will take a lot away from, maybe the resources that are required to build other things to even make, the foundation strong. And so then I'll just apply that delayed gratification. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to buy it now. I'll put in the work. When I get to this point, I'll have a lot more to buy. And then that still comes down to like saving, so I save a lot. There are like times where like, and that's why I say this, and I also just inculcate it with like the lifestyle part, because me talking about all this part and still stressing on the savings part, and then come online and then come and put, okay, I'm in this private jet, I'm in this business class or first class. You may think that
This is
spending,
not just person,
you get what I mean? But that's just like me living my regular life minus my expenses. You get me? And so those things don't hurt me. If they hurt me, I'll not do it. Trust me. You get what I mean? Like there are people who just see, probably you have like to book like a business class from Dubai to Ghana with my family always cost me not less than $10,000. And so you think that I'd have like $20,000 in that, and then doing that, like what is the sense in that? You get what I mean? So don't look at that on social media and judge, and then also want to like it took a good considerable amount of time for me to personally even upgrade myself, to that level, even from the influence of obviously my wife again, so like thinking about all that I said, you can see the role of saving in this conversation. I do save a lot, and people around me, even my manager, and then everybody in the office, they've now inculcated that habit and spirit of saving. You need that. The money you see us spending in November and December, we started saving them in January. Don't think that
this November, December, you bought power. The way you said,
you can imagine.
I get it.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it, because like I said at the beginning, people don't see what's happening behind the scenes.
Yes.
Social media is not real low. People, if you follow social media, he's paid 10,000 for a ticket that is saving. Kojo, you have a strong mindset.
Yeah.
Because people are dragging you on Twitter. You've been doing this for 13 years. You've made losses and all that. Like, what has been some of your mindset shifts, especially when it comes to money, finances, trading?
So there's this book, right? I thought you're asking a question in a particular manner in the sense of how have I survived all of this social media bullying and stuff like that, right? I'm very big on philosophy and
Okay.
psychology as well, right? There's this book that I read very early on. It's a very big book, also probably like 1,000 page. It's called The Popular Delusion and Madness of a Crowd, right? By Charles Mackay. I read a lot though. I'm sure you probably
Yeah,
did that a lot.
I've seen that.
And that kind of book, that book will tell you about all the frenziness that would happen in the world, even counting down like, thousands of decades, right?
Mhm.
Relating it to all spheres of life, not only like finance, even though there's like a lot of finance logic around the market bubbles,
Right.
witchcraft. Would you believe that there was a point in England where like they believed that England was going to crash, right? As in like there were meteors that were going to fall from the
We're going to
skies and
crash.
destroy.
Yeah.
And so all the people panicked and ran away from there. Look, imagine like today England, and you read that from that book. So
Yeah.
you kind of understand people's logic. I'm just giving that as an example of how I've read into psychology of
Right.
humans and people. And then when I started like this Twitter stuff, and then people started coming at me, I used to always just say that it's normal. They're going to do that, but eventually they're going to transcend from the hate and the accusation into love and admiration. And you can tell maybe it's just been a while you probably kept up with my post, but 95% is love and
I've seen
admiration.
it, yeah.
But previously was like hate and and just how it just works. You have to understand the dynamism, and sometimes there's also a little bit of political play in there. Because if you don't do that, then you're not going to get any clout. You need that clout to grow in today's world.
Yeah.
You need that attention, whether you like it or not.
You need
Look,
it.
nobody's going to watch your podcast if you want to be the most calmest.
True.
I'm not saying go and
No,
find fights.
I get your point.
You get what I mean?
Yeah.
There need to be a little bit of spice and sauce in a more salient way to just gain. So, however anybody, as far as I'm not hurting anybody physically, I'm not, you get what I mean? I'm sharing my genuine thoughts. Like when I said, like, if you're 30 years plus, you must have.
Oh boy, that tweet.
I meant it.
Yeah.
And I don't change my mind on it. If you don't have that, look around first yourself. Then if you look around yourself and it's not enough, look around your friends. Is that not what I said?
Yeah.
How like detrimental is this tweet? I don't know if you get what I mean. How painful is this, or how crazy is it? I said that you at the age of 30 should at least have what? 100,000.
I want to see if I can find it.
That tweet?
Yeah.
You probably have to search 100,000.
Okay, no age range as limitation, but if you are 30 years plus as of now, you should have seen and made your first 100,000 at least.
Yes.
And I think people didn't see the part where you said seen.
Yes.
Because I'm 25.
Yeah.
I have seen.
Yes.
I have touched.
Yes.
So that makes sense.
But read the last part.
This is they're not good. This is equivalent to just 6,150 today. If you haven't made it yet, check yourself first, then check your friends and circles.
That is what people missed.
Yeah.
That's what true. People missed.
Yeah.
That is that. And they highlighted the scene and then went away. But in true sense, it's either you're checking yourself. What am I doing wrong? Why have I not reached there yet? Am I walking in a path that is just leading? You get the very contented people, settled people that are just like lost perhaps all hopes or whatever it is, running with a narrative of all hands are not equal. But it depends on where you want to be.
Very bad mindset, I mean, it's still around the thing about mindset, because even this like this, somebody will be, I'm sure in the comments, people will be like, bro, we're in Ghana, the government is not...
Absolutely, of course.
And people don't want to take things for themselves.
Yes.
And someone came on the pod the last time, and she made a statement that was very powerful. She said, I asked the question, and she was like, nobody will do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that a lot of Ghanaians, I'm still a young boy, I mean, I fall under the category of the Ghanaian youth, don't understand that nobody's going to do it. The government, forget about it.
Of course.
Your parents, forget about it. And this tweet, you just hated it because today, Ghana, this was last year, right?
Yes.
Ekufado is stepping on her neck. What do you mean I should have seen my 100,000? Right? Mindset problem. Kojo, are you a millionaire?
This is a question to ask.
Yes, I want to know.
No, this is, I mean, the most very cunning, and then also not to take it as an insult or disrespect. This is the most disrespectful question.
I want an answer.
Because my cyber truck alone is $200,000. My Lamborghini is what?
Please tell us.
More than 250.
450. Let's continue.
Talked about only those two.
Yeah,
My
so that's
Corvette,
$500,000.
My Corvette, 100,000 plus.
550.
My Range Rover, I bought it in Ghana, give or take 95 to 100,000 plus.
650.
That's just cars alone.
Yes.
Are
You're a millionaire.
you kidding?
Me, I want a yes or no. So that tomorrow come inside and ask you the
but
question.
Who is a millionaire?
That's a good question. Are you asking me?
Yes.
Someone who has still $1 million before.
In what sense? It could be in liquid cash or in assets.
Yeah.
I've seen both.
You've seen both.
Wow. So that question of millionaire.
I'll still ask again, and I want the direct answer. Kojo, are you a millionaire?
Is it when the taxman is not watching the video or is watching? If the taxman is not watching, I am. But if they are watching, I'm not.
No, I like that answer. Wow. Is there? Wow. I know when we put this part out there on social media, they're good to car for you. Why is he mentioning his cars and the amount and all that? Please be motivated.
But that's the reality. That's not even like made up figures. That's just what it is. So that's just like highlighting the things that people see. So talk more of what people don't see.
Yeah.
In my trading account alone, like the amount of money sitting in there, like it begs the question that you're asking, but obviously it's your choice, and then you want a definite answer. But anybody asking that now, they're very far from reality. Not you, though.
Yeah, I feel you.
I'm just being very honest.
Yeah, I feel you.
I don't really blow my trumpet. Sometimes people assume that I do, and it's okay. I don't care. Whatever perspective you have it. But sometimes we must call a spade, and it's just by putting some of these things in real checks, check marks, that it comes glaring in our faces. The first time I was asked this question that you just asked me was like about 3 years ago, and that time I was just like a little bit short of that if I introspectively watch myself, And so what I told the person was that I'm a millionaire. It's a yen video. You can go and watch it. Yen.com. It's on YouTube. I said I'm way past millionaire in cedis, but like very little short of millionaire in dollars, And it was not so long until, those parts also, it's all part
of it. So 3 years ago, that was the answer, and now the answer is a simple yes. If you're asking that question, please, we have a problem with it. For the people watching, we are coming towards the end of the people watching. What would you tell them, especially? I want this episode to be mainly about money, finances, mindset, and all that. What would you tell them?
So, when I was like 25, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had more like my own hashtag, right? And for every social media post, everything that I do, even like any book I write, anything that I did, you'd see like with that hashtag. Even when I'm sending you a regular message on WhatsApp,
you had it.
And that was like millionaire before 30. Yes. People that know me very well and who have been with me for like that long know what I'm talking about. I'd always like write that. Either I write MB 430, MB 430, or I'll just like write a full thing. And that was like me like calling it, more like prophesying it into my life, because like I wanted to be that, not just by title, but in reality, So like my mind started working in that line, because it requires a lot of hard work, dedication, striving, all the cliche jargons that we hear of, and it also requires being extremely smart and working extremely smart. We live in an economy where we spend obviously the Ghanaian cedis, right? And to put it in the context of like how much you need to save in Ghana cedis to become a millionaire, right? $1 million, then we're talking about 16 million cedis, right? You need to do the math. I have a term that I share with my colleagues, we say DTM,
Mm-hmm.
right? Everything we say DTM,
Mhm.
right? Okay,
What
you
does
want to
that mean?
buy a new car, what's the name of the car? Mention whatever choice of car, DTM. You want to
Mhm.
buy a land, okay, what's the average price of the land? DTM.
Mhm.
You want to buy a house, what's the everything? DTM. Why? Why DTM? Because it makes you face like your own realities, right? We're talking about money and finance and all of those
Yeah.
things as a youth now, and I'm bringing it to the most barest minimum. It makes you face reality. Now, how does it make you face reality? Let's put it this way. Let's say by choice, right? Obviously, I don't know if it's right way to put this question. If you had your choice, right? We're in April now, December. What car would you want to buy? If that's like your
GLE.
GLE,
Yeah.
GLE. Okay, I've seen that car, Mercedes GLE,
Yeah.
right? So Mercedes GLE will range around what is it, 700,000 cities?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I'm wrong.
The last time I checked was I think is it $80,000.
Dollars.
Let me check again.
So 80,000. What are we talking about? Yeah, just around that range, 700, 800, 900. I don't know.
Yeah, let's
Or
check.
a million plus. 80,000 is a million plus actually. Can you imagine $80,000 like 1 point something, 1.2 or 1.3? Checking. Let me see if I'm right.
GLE Mercedes GLE 350. Yeah, $82,000.
Dollars.
Yeah.
I was bringing in conversion into cities.
Okay, so into cities, so 82,000 into cities. You're talking about a million point, yeah, 1.3 million.
1.3 million. 1.3 million. Do something for me.
Okay.
Divided by 12. No, don't. Yeah, by 12.
100,000.
100,000.
Yeah.
Divided by 4.
27,000.
And divided by 5.
5,400.
Which means that for you to achieve your GLE goal, you must be making 5,400 Ghana cedis every single working day.
Right.
Watch yourself now.
Right. Can we please end this podcast?
No, this is what the maths is about.
I like it. Okay.
That is it.
Please do the maths.
That is it. You have to always do the maths. You just break it down in this simple, scale. Okay, from the price point to the year, to the month, to the week, to the day. If you want, you can go into the hours. That's what I do.
Yeah.
So I watch myself and like, okay, I make this a day, or I make this a week, or I make this a month. Okay, multiplied by this, it can get me this.
Okay.
And then you start planning like your life around that. And it applies. This alone just summarizes literally all the conversation about finance or money that we're talking about, because all it requires is that you do the math for your own livelihood, and then you peg that to what you want. And then if it's not up to, then go look for means to increase it. Whether you're getting a different job, an extra job, scaling up, whatever the motivation is, then it comes down to like, that thing, So like I've even forgotten where I was.
Even myself now, all I'm thinking about is the 5,000. We were talking about the advice to the youth.
Yes.
Wow. You are talking about like the mindset, the things they need to have, and you were talking about when you're having conversation with your friends.
Yes.
And they want to buy anything, you tell them DTM.
Yes.
DTM.
And it was the same for me, like I said. So like for everything that I knew, I kind of had my own like life plan and timeline as well. You need that as well. Anybody here also need that. You watch yourself. Okay, I'm 25. Like I said, I think I was highlighting on the millionaire before 30.
Yeah, before 30.
That aspect. So that was like a recounting motivation for me, right? So yes, I think now I remember where I was. Wait. Yes. So now I just understood that what. Now let's bring in today's term millionaire in this context, because that was where we were before I brought the car part. So 16 million, right? You want to put down 16 million, right? Now I think you told me if on the average, if I'm right or wrong, you're like 5 years, 25 years, good. So it means that in respect, you have like 5 years to make a million if you want to.
Funny enough, I come to answer a question I had, so let's continue.
Yeah. So 5 years, right? You wrote 16 million down, divided by 5.
3.2 million.
And divided by 12.
266,666.
And then divided by divided by 4.
66,666.
And divided by 5.
13,333.
So it means that in essence, every day
till 30.
till 30, you should be making what?
13,330.
But the beauty is that if you zone in on that thing that you're good at, right? Now you can imagine how daunting of a task it is.
Yeah.
Because you're probably asking yourself that, how realistic it is that I'm going to be making 13,000 every
24
day,
hours.
24 hours, right? But that is where the beauty of the challenge comes in. You get this conversation, because I'm going to tell you something that will shock you. If you zone in, let's say you have this, right? You can have it on your vision board, wherever that you just watch and motivate you, right? There's going to be multiple years along the line, right? That you make multiple 13,000 in hours. That will make up for the days where you would not even make it.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? And that's where the buying of time comes in. Because imagine that you need to make in 13,000 every day, right? And then for some crazy deal that just came because your name became the biggest podcast or whatever it is, you had some deal that just closed 400,000 or 500,000 or whatever it is. Then if you bring it back to this maths, you don't need to put in the same level of work every day. But imagine that you're still an ambitious young man and you decide to put in the same work every day. Then you're going to buy enough and more time such that before you even get like the 5 years on, you're like that $1 million ago is like, Plus, the beauty as well is that there is some silent part of compounding that creeps in without you realizing. Because obviously, you're not going to tell me that whenever, if you're supposed to be abiding by this, you're going to make that 30,000, put in your bank, you can never touch it. You probably get like 100,000 at, let's say, the same 25 or 26 and say, I've seen this beautiful land here, I want to buy. You buy that land, 5 years on, it appreciates, it adds up. I remember the price I bought my first house, right? Barely 400,000 Ghana cedis. Now, if I want to sell that same house, like 1.2, 1.3 million. You can imagine, and that's just like in a short few years, and say the same account for all the lands and all of. So get it from that logic. Don't always just stick to like, hey, the figurative part of it.
I have to go back,
yeah. But in essence, once you have this figured out, you can become whoever you want to be and a millionaire as well, if that's your goal.
Before 30.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. I have final 7 questions. Those are like rapid fire questions, so you just answer them. If you don't have an answer, you can just move past that. And we have a question from the previous guest. You answer and then ask a question for the next guest. So the first question is, what's a lesson life had to teach you the hard way?
A lesson life had to teach me the hard way.
Yeah.
Life has actually taught me a lot of lessons. And I'll figure out one. You don't always get what you want.
Facts. What's a skill everyone should learn, but most people don't?
If I would call it a skills, then I'd say financial literacy.
If you could time travel but only once, where or when would you want to go to? It could be a place, it could be a year.
I'd still want to come back to Ghana, but maybe in a better home. Maybe Kwame Despite.
If you weren't doing what you do now, what would you be doing?
I'd be working in a high-level financial or big corporation, HSBC, NPA, Ernst & Young, Deloitte and Touche.
When there's just money, your life is money.
I would have definitely been working in the financial sector. People fail to realize that I have a very solid accounting and finance degree. Nobody should underestimate that. And I'm still doing my MSc in financial management with Manchester University, in Dubai. Even though I can take my classes and campus in Manchester itself if I so wish. And I'm going to be done with that just in a few few months. But prior to that, I still have like my professional certification, also like an alternative investment certificate from Harvard as well. I did it online, by the way. So like the CV heavy.
Yeah, yeah, I feel it.
Yeah.
If you could send one message to the entire world, what would it be?
To the entire world?
Yeah. Let's assume the whole world was watching.
Wow. If I could send one message to the entire world.
If you don't answer now, it will haunt you when you go back. Be like, oh, I should have said this on the podcast.
I definitely find an answer, but I hope that I mean that answer. You get what I mean?
Yeah,
That's just why
yeah.
I can't just like rush it when I don't really mean it. But indeed, if I really had one question, but who is the one answering that question, by the way? If I'm asking that question,
No, if you could send one message.
If I'm sending that message, who am I sending it to?
To everybody watching.
Oh, to everybody?
Yeah.
Everybody has their own time and chances.
So you kind of believe in the all hands are not equal to an extent.
That is very different from all hands are not equal per se. In a very slight manner. Yeah.
Okay.
All hands are not equal is like settling.
Okay.
But this is not like really settling. You mean that you could be
You
putting in
could
the work, but maybe you don't expect that your result will come. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's true. If you could have dinner with your younger self, what would you tell him?
Do the same thing you did. Maybe just put double the effort.
Real. Last one, if you could invent one thing to make your life easy, what would it be?
A genie computer that can just program everything or every thought that runs through my head.
A lot runs through your head, eh?
Absolutely. And they need to come out in real form. But I just wish that like I could just have like a real world ChatGPT replica that can, indeed just bring what I think about it comes.
Yeah.
That's the most powerful thing that
some of the things the guests have said here. I just wonder. Please play the very first voice note. That question is for you. The very first one, yeah. The one that says Ivy.
Okay, so my question is, if you had to reinvent yourself or start from scratch with maybe what you're doing now or something that you'd want to do in the future, what are some of the key things that you do? And why would you do them?
I'm the wrong person to ask this question because I would not really change anything that I did. I think that I did whatever I did, and I'm doing whatever I'm doing from a very conscious and subconscious, thought process, and it's intentional, and I know what I'm doing. So I just appreciate the wins and the L's along the line. Maybe the only thing I'll do is that I probably only have a better experience to deal with the L's if you bring me in the same scenario. But I'll still repeat the same thing that I did.
Good one. Please ask a question to the next guest. And I don't know who it is too. So
okay.
It could be a general question.
For the next guest, what did you do different that you think others are not doing that got you to where you are?
I was going to say answer, but it's your question. No worry. Kojo, thank you so much. I know this was a very tight one because it was not your schedule, but really appreciate you coming. And I would want one thing from you. You see the camera over there?
Yeah.
We are rolling, right? Please look in there and tell them to subscribe to this channel.
Guys, this is Kojo Forex, aka GBP Emperor, aka Emperor of Blues. If you're not subscribed to this channel, you're doing yourself a disservice. Peace.
Thank you guys, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye.